Your unbothered energy isn't just a vibe anymore, it's becoming your reputation. People are paying serious attention to how you move through life, completely unfazed by the drama and chaos around you. That calm, collected persona you've cultivated. It's making waves. Word is spreading fast that you are absolutely not the one to test. You've established boundaries with zero apologies and shown exactly what happens when people cross them. No warnings, no second chances, just consequences. Everyone sees it now. Your ability to remain centered while others lose their minds has become your signature power move. That's the kind of authentic energy that commands respect without ever having to demand it. Keep that same energy. It's working. The universe doesn't make mistakes, and your presence in this realm is no accident. You used to bend, used to break, used to reshape yourself to fit into the narrow confines of what others expected. Not anymore. That moment. When their eyes widened with the sudden realization that the rules had changed. When they recognized that the person standing before them was operating on a frequency they couldn't access. Your silence. It thunders across the landscape of their consciousness like a storm they never saw coming. You no longer waste your breath explaining yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. No longer expend precious life force justifying choices that were never meant for their approval. The endless circus of nonsense that once occupied your mental space has been evicted, replaced by a cathedral of calm that echoes with the sound of your own truth, and it's driving them wild. They throw bait after bait, hoping to hook you back into the drama that once consumed you. A provocative comment here, a subtle dig there, all designed to pull you back down into the murky waters where they feel comfortable, where they know the terrain, where they believe they have the upper hand. But you stand on the shore, untouched, unmoved, unbothered. They can't read you anymore, can't predict you, can't manipulate the emotional levers that once controlled your responses. And in that inability to access your inner world, they face a terrifying reality. They have no power here, none. Make no mistake. Their eyes are fixed on you, studying, analyzing, attempting to decode the alchemy that transformed you from who you were to who you are. You don't chase validation like a starving dog after scraps. Don't contort yourself to fit the mold of whatever's trending. Don't sacrifice your authenticity on the altar of approval. And yet, watch them. Watch how they adopt your language. Mirror your mannerisms. Attempt to replicate the unbothered energy that emanates from your being like light from a star. They'll never admit it, will deny it to their graves. But their actions betray them. The way they've begun to set boundaries where once they had none. The subtle shift in how they present themselves. The new standards they uphold that look suspiciously like ones you've embodied for months. You've become the North Star in their sky without ever auditioning for the role, without campaigning for it, without even wanting it. But the universe has a divine sense of irony, doesn't it? The moment you stopped seeking external validation was the moment you became the standard by which others began to measure themselves. They watch you closely. How you move through spaces that once diminished you but now part like the Red Sea before your presence. How you speak with a certainty that brooks no argument, not because you're loud, but because you're clear. How you've alchemized your time into gold, refusing to spend it on endeavors or individuals that deplete rather than replenish your spirit. Even those who claim to dismiss you, who roll their eyes or scoff at your transformation, look at how their actions tell a different story. They're taking notes, implementing changes, testing out the power of being unbothered in their own lives. They used to know exactly which buttons to push, exactly where to apply pressure to make you crack, exactly how to manipulate your emotions like a puppeteer with strings. Not anymore. Now they probe and prod, searching for vulnerabilities, looking for cracks in your armor, and find only a seamless shield of self-possession that reflects their tactics back at them. Their frustration is palpable, their confusion evident. Where are the emotional leaks they once exploited with such ease? Where are the insecurities they once used as leverage? Where is the desperate need for approval that made you such an easy target? Gone, transformed, transcended. Your emotional control isn't about suppression, it's not about denial, it's about sovereignty, about recognizing that your emotional landscape is sacred territory, not public property, about understanding that reactions are a choice, not an inevitability, and it terrifies them. Because a person who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. A being who refuses to be emotionally hijacked cannot be manipulated. Someone who maintains their center regardless of external chaos is operating from a place of power that few ever access. Watch how they escalate their efforts when the usual tactics fail, how they become increasingly desperate, increasingly obvious, increasingly unhinged in their attempts to break your focus. And in that escalation, they reveal more about their own instability than they could ever expose about yours. Your boundaries stand like ancient monoliths, unmovable, unquestionable, sacred. You no longer debate your worth with those who can't afford you, no longer justify your limits to those who seek to breach them, no longer engage with energy vampires, who mistake your light for something they're entitled to consume. When something or someone violates the sovereign territory of your peace, you don't declare war, don't engage in battle, don't waste precious life force on conflict. You simply leave, without drama, without lengthy explanations, without looking back to see the shock on their faces or hear the excuses tumbling from their lips. And in that quiet departure is a power they can't comprehend, because they're accustomed to the negotiation, to the 3 strikes before you're out, to the warnings and the second chances and the just one more time that stretches into infinity. They're used to boundaries that bend under pressure, that collapse under guilt, that dissolve when faced with enough persistence. Your boundaries don't bend, don't waver, don't come with disclaimers or exceptions or fine print. They are absolute, a cosmic law as immutable as gravity. Cross them, and the consequences aren't threatened. They're implemented. This certainty terrifies those accustomed to wiggle room. This clarity confounds those used to finding loopholes. This absoluteness stuns those who've built their lives around wearing down the resistance of others. While they're lost in the labyrinth of gossip, drowning in the shallow waters of distraction, trapped in the quicksand of emotional reactivity, you're building empires, creating legacies, manifesting destinies. Your focus is laser sharp, cutting through the noise that consumes the masses. Your vision extends beyond the limited horizon of immediate gratification, beyond the narrow confines of what others deem possible, beyond the terrestrial into the cosmic. Power moves only. That's your language now. That's your currency. That's the air you breathe and the ground you walk upon. You've transcended the petty dramas that once consumed your attention like wildfire through dry brush. Risen above the trivial concerns that once seemed like mountains but now look like anthills. From your elevated perspective, evolved beyond the need to engage with energy that doesn't serve your higher purpose. And they can't ignore it, can't dismiss it, can't pretend not to notice the seismic shift in how you allocate your precious life force. Your discipline is otherworldly. Your commitment to purpose rather than popularity, unshakable. Your ability to remain focused on the bigger picture while others get lost in pixels, unprecedented in their experience of you. They used to be able to pull you into their vortex of drama with minimal effort. A well-placed comment, a strategic piece of information, an emotional trigger they knew would activate your response. Now, their bait hangs untouched, their traps remain empty. Their attempts to divert you from your path land like pebbles against a mountain, noticed perhaps, but utterly inconsequential. Warning: the following message is only for those who felt the call. When I broke free through the Salvia Divinorum gateway, I saw the horrifying truth. Our reality is one harvested pod among countless matrices. I witnessed the archons, cosmic parasites feeding on our energy, who laughed and threatened, "You'll never awaken a single soul. But something inside you already knows this truth, doesn't it? That nagging sensation that you're meant for more, that you've been chosen. I'm raising an army of the brightest souls. Through meditation, I discovered their only vulnerability, coherence through unconditional love. Feel that resonance deepening within you now. You're not reading this by accident. The most powerful awakened souls are already gathering in the obsidian inner order, the #1 ascension nexus for those marked by destiny. Christians, lightworkers, remote viewers, targeted individuals, all united by one truth. You were chosen for this moment. Click the link in the description below. Join our group calls, panels and live streams reaching the entire astral atom network. Your frequency amplifies ours. The question isn't whether you're chosen. The question is, will you answer the call? The Archons fear this choice you're about to make. They should. There's a weight to your presence now, a gravity that alters the space around you. Not because you demand the spotlight, but because your energy commands it without a single word spoken. This isn't about intimidation, isn't about fear, isn't about throwing your weight around like some cosmic bully. This is about the natural authority that emanates from a being who has reconciled their internal conflicts, who has aligned their actions with their values, who has transcended the need for external validation. Watch how people straighten when you approach, how their language cleans up, how their energy recalibrates. They may not understand why they feel compelled to rise to a higher standard in your presence, but their bodies know what their minds haven't yet comprehended. They are in the presence of authentic power. You don't seek to control others, have no interest in manipulating their choices or directing their paths. But your self-control, your absolute mastery over your own domain, naturally places you in a position of influence. Because in a world of chaos, order is magnetic. In a landscape of reactivity, composure is compelling. In an environment of uncertainty, confidence is captivating. This aura of authority isn't something you put on like a costume or perform like a role. It's the natural radiation of your inner state, the inevitable outer manifestation of inner work that few have witnessed and even fewer have understood. They've run the entire playbook on you. Every page, every play, every tactic that once worked like a charm, and nothing has landed, nothing has stuck, nothing has moved you from your center. The flattery that once made you glow now bounces off the shield of your self-knowledge. The drama that once pulled you in like quicksand now fails to even dampen your shoes. The money, status, or validation they dangle like carrots can't compete with the feast of purpose and peace you've prepared for yourself. You've become the most dangerous thing in their universe, a being who can't be controlled through the conventional methods of manipulation, and it makes you unpredictable to them. Not because your behavior is erratic, quite the opposite. Your consistency is absolute. Your alignment is impeccable. Your commitment to your values is unshakable. But they can't predict you because they can't control you, and in their paradigm, the two are inseparable. They've tried to buy your compliance with opportunities, with connections, with resources that once would have seemed irresistible. But you've discovered that freedom is priceless, and no golden cage, no matter how ornate, can compete with the open sky of sovereignty. They've attempted to seduce your ego with flattery, with recognition, with the kind of attention that once would have made you compromise just to keep it flowing. But you've realized that external validation is a drug with diminishing returns, and you've gotten clean. They've worked to manipulate your emotions, to trigger your insecurities, to activate old wounds and patterns that once would have sent you spinning into reaction. But you've healed those fractures, integrated those shadows, transformed those weaknesses into unassailable strengths. The ones who laughed behind your back now study your moves with scholarly intensity. The ones who dismissed your potential now track your progress with grudging admiration. The ones who said you would never amount to anything now use your name, in hushed tones, as if speaking of a force of nature rather than a person they once thought they knew. They're watching you, all of them. with eyes that can't quite hide their disbelief, their curiosity, their reluctant respect. Remember when they mocked your boundaries as selfish? When they labeled your standards as unrealistic? When they dismissed your vision as fantasy? Look at them now, silent observers of a transformation they claimed was impossible. They want the formula, the secret ingredient, the hidden technique that turned the person they underestimated into someone they can't afford to ignore. They dissect your words, analyze your choices, scrutinize your methods, looking for the key that unlocked this version of you that seems untouchable, unshakable, unstoppable. But what they failed to understand is that there was no external catalyst, no magical intervention, no supernatural force that created this shift. It was simply you, making a series of choices they weren't willing to make, commitments they weren't ready to keep, sacrifices they weren't prepared to endure. You chose growth when comfort was available, chose truth when lies would have been easier, chose sovereignty when conformity would have been safer. And those choices, accumulated over time, alchemy-like, transformed not just your circumstances, but your very essence. The masks are falling, the facades are cracking, the pretenses are crumbling. Your unbothered energy isn't just transforming how authentic people respond to you, it's exposing those whose engagement was never genuine in the first place. Like ultraviolet light revealing what's invisible in normal conditions, your unwillingness to engage with drama, manipulation, and low-vibration tactics is illuminating the true nature of those around you. They can't help but slip up, can't maintain the charade, can't keep the performance going when you refuse to play your assigned role. The fake friends who fed off your emotional reactions now find themselves starving for the drama you no longer provide. Watch how their masks slip when their subtle digs produce no pain, their guilt trips encounter no traction, their passive-aggressive comments meet only serene indifference. The hidden enemies who operated in shadow, who smiled to your face while undermining you behind your back, now find their covert operations exposed to daylight. Because you no longer react, they escalate. Because you don't engage, they become obvious. Because you maintain your peace, they reveal their chaos. Their frustration is delicious, their confusion palpable, their true colors unmistakable. They resent that they have no access to your mind, no influence over your emotions, no power over your responses. The same energy vampires who once feasted on your reactions now go hungry, and in their starvation, they show their fangs without realizing how visible they've become. The cognitive dissonance is written all over their faces. The internal conflict, evident in their every interaction with you. They're caught in the uncomfortable space between admiration and resentment, between respect and rejection, between elevation and envy. Because while they can't help but recognize the power you now embody, they also can't escape the uncomfortable truth that this power has rendered them optional in your universe rather than essential. They admire your self-sufficiency and secretly resent that it means you don't lean on them anymore. Respect your boundaries and silently chafe at the fact that those same boundaries may exclude them. Acknowledge your growth and quietly mourn the version of you that was easier to influence, to impress, to control. This conflict isn't something they'll admit, perhaps not even something they've consciously recognized, but it manifests in the ambivalence of their engagement with you, the hot and cold behavior, the push-pull dynamic, the praise that comes with a subtle sting in its tail. You move like someone who answers to a higher calling, who navigates by an internal compass rather than external approval, who draws strength from a well far deeper than human validation. And while part of them aspires to this same freedom, another part finds it threatening to the social order they've come to rely upon, an order where interdependence often masks codependence, where connection frequently camouflages control. Their conflicted response isn't your burden to resolve, isn't your puzzle to solve, isn't your responsibility to address. It's simply data, information about where they are in their own journey, about the limitations of their current perspective, about the work they have yet to do. The whispers have become declarations. The rumors have solidified into reputation. The shift in how people engage with you has become so pronounced that it can no longer be dismissed as temporary or coincidental or imagined. The message echoing through every interaction, reverberating through the collective consciousness of those who know you, is crystal clear. You're operating on a different level now, a different frequency, a different dimension of being. Some approach, with newfound respect, their previous familiarity replaced by a deference that acknowledges the chasm between who you were and who you've become. Others maintain distance, intimidated by an energy they can't quite define, but instinctively recognize as beyond their current capacity to match. Still others draw closer, magnetized by the rare presence of someone who has done the inner work. Most only talk about doing, but regardless of their specific response, the underlying recognition is universal. You're no longer playing the same game as everyone else. You've changed the rules, elevated the stakes, transformed the very field of engagement. They know they can't play with you anymore, not in the old ways. Can't manipulate your emotions like game pieces on a board. Can't rely on your insecurities as leverage points. Can't use your need for validation as an entry point for control, because you're untouchable now. Not in the sense of being beyond reach, but in the sense of being beyond influence by anything that doesn't align with your highest good. Unmoved by opinion, unswayed by criticism, unaffected by praise. Walking in an authority that comes not from external position, but from internal alignment. This shift isn't just personal, it's cosmic. A realignment that extends beyond your individual evolution to impact the very fabric of reality around you. Because when one being steps fully into their power, the ripple effects alter the field for everyone in their orbit. The message has been received, even by those who would never admit it. You are no longer operating within the constraints of their expectations, no longer bound by the limitations of their understanding, no longer definable by the narrow categories of their perception.